Welcome to another episode of Media Talks TV with your host, Tony J. If you're here, click the like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for more notifications. Last week, we all witnessed the presidential debates, very first presidential debates to happen this week. And I can tell you, it was the most disappointing thing I've ever seen in my entire life in terms of, I guess you would say, like, this kind of set the stage as being one of the worst presidential debates that we've ever witnessed. And Joe Biden finds himself at the crossroads of his political career. And many people right now, as we speak, in the Democratic Party want him and are urging him to step down so that he could have a chance and so that the party itself can have a chance of beating Donald Trump in November. Now, bear in mind, it is July. We have close to maybe four 4 months, 4.5 months left before we go to the ballots to either give Biden a second term or give Donald Trump a second term. And right now, it's very complicated, especially for me. I don't find myself really participating in this election. We have the two worst candidates ever in the history of elections, American elections. 178, the other one is 82. I don't see how America got this far down the rabbit hole where we think somebody in that age bracket has the competency to actually lead a nation. Now you can say what you want to say. Maybe you want to continue voting for Biden, but hear this one out, right? If there was a scenario of somebody in their 80s driving a car down a road on a highway, would you let an 80-year-old man drive a car? Would you let them risk everything because you thought, well, they have experience, they have wisdom, so they can still drive like they did 40, 50 years ago? But they get in an accident and they hit somebody, or they're not fully aware that they did hit somebody, causing a catastrophic accident. Would you think that that person is mentally competent to actually drive a car? And we answer the same thing with Joe Biden in the sense that, do we think he's sharp enough to actually be able to lead the nation for another 4 years? Will we be okay with it? And that's going to be a question that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Some parts of me say, well, I'm going to sit this one out because here's the thing. I don't think Trump has all the makings of being a president. The way he handled COVID, the way he handled everything else, well, I wouldn't dare vote him back in another 4 years. But then there's Joe Biden. And the scariest part about Joe Biden is his heart might be in the right place, but his mind might be somewhere else. And we don't want what happened to FDR to happen to Joe Biden because we I don't know people who lived through history are old enough to remember when FDR died. He died in the middle of a war. He died during a time of great peril because we were in the middle of World War II. And then Harry Truman had to take over from there. What would the worst case scenario be if we were to give the nuclear codes to somebody that doesn't have a sharp mind? People don't understand how grave the presidency is to, you know, we don't know on the inside what the president does. Some of us know what the presidency is. They think it's about presiding over bills and stuff like that, but presidents have power over the military. And presidents have great power in terms of influencing military willpower on other global stages. So when you're thinking about what's important, could you allow an 82-year-old man to have the nuclear codes, to also have access to the military and do something, make heavy decisions that require you to be able to respond to a tragedy in the event something could happen? Because that's going to be the ultimate question with Joe Biden's mental fitness for office. There is another interview coming up with George Stephanopoulos. And if you don't know who George Stephanopoulos is, he's a news correspondent for ABC. His interview will be coming on a Sunday. They'll be doing it. They'll be shooting the interview today, but it will be airing on Sunday. From Sunday to next week, there's going to be a big decision being made about whether or not he can still be able to be the political candidate for this country. If we don't know where his mindset is, I think the country is going to be in trouble. because the debate that we saw last week wasn't very good. You could try and spin it, and Democrats are trying to spin it one way or another, and that's what's the most damaging thing about this. You have Democratic political pundits telling us one debate does not mean that he's not capable of running the country. But this isn't just one debate. This is a string of gaffes that have gone on for about a year, 1 or 2 years. And people are starting to question. They didn't just start questioning until after that first debate. But people have been saying things for the longest time that he might not be physically up to it at this point. And we got to make a decision. Is Trump really the worst that we can get as a president? I mean, if you think about it, Reagan had health problems even when he was the president. We went to his second term, they called him the sleepwalking president in the sense that his mental acuity wasn't up to the range that it needed to be for him to make presidential decisions. So it's like those 4 years from 84 to 88 kind of made it seem like, well, his cabinet was running the country rather than him. And that's where the problem lies. If we give Joe Biden another term in office, who's going to really be running the country? Is it really going to be him, or is it really going to be his staff, his chief of staff, or his vice president? We do not want a FDR moment where we lose a president while they're in office and then the predecessor has to step in, because you know what happened to Truman when he ran for his second term. He didn't get a second term. Same thing could happen to Kamala Harris. She could step in, be president for 1 year, and then before you know it, she tries to run and only gets and doesn't really get elected president. That's a possibility that could happen. It happened to Truman. It could happen to her. And she's not very popular either. Well, she's kind of like a wild card in the sense that if she can't get elected and beat Trump, then who else can really beat Trump? And that's really the question right now. You know, but the biggest issue right now is that what I have with the news media also. And the last point I want to make is we have the media right now telling us not to believe our eyes and ears of what we saw on that stage on CNN. And that's a very big problem because you see clearly that there's a problem. And Democrats are saying, no, there's not a problem. There isn't any problem. He's the sharpest he's ever been. Everybody keeps gaslighting. In a sense, it looks like cognitive dissonance, in the sense that cognitive dissonance, you're, say, for instance, you're smoking a cigarette and you know that smoking causes cancer, would you continue to smoke yet you know it causes cancer yet you continue to smoke? That's what cognitive dissonance is in terms of what this election means. We clearly know that there is a problem with Biden's mental acuity and sharpness, but we choose to vote anyway because we'd rather have him than Trump. And I feel like if that goes the way that it goes, then it shows the disingenuousness of the Democratic Party, that they hedged a bet on Joe Biden, and Joe Biden took the whole party down. Even when he came into the fray of running for president, they knew that in some ways he knew he wasn't beatable. That he couldn't beat anybody, or that he wasn't electable. But ultimately, we get what we vote for, and if that's the candidate that we're voting for, then may God help the soul of the country. Because at this point, you can't keep using the same excuses about why you wouldn't vote for Trump. Whole thing is that we're at the crossroads, is like we're overplaying a certain hand in this whole thing. We know Trump has 34 indictments, but of course, he does have the physical sharpness. He's mentally sharp. He could make decisions concerning the country, but those decisions will be met with checks and balances, of course. But I think one of the things that has gone wrong with this whole ordeal is we've been putting so much of our stock into, well, oh, Trump is bad. If he gets elected, he's going to be a dictator, this and all this fear mongering that the media does, just scaring people and scaring the shit out of people, saying, if he gets elected, he's going to be a dictator. And I'm like, I don't think you had the ability to keep relying on that card over and over again. It's just not going to work. So what do you do then? You gotta vote your conscience. When you vote your conscience, it's based upon certain things being practical. And that's the most important thing. Be practical. If you know that this man's going to have problems with his ability to lead, then you got to ask yourself that question. Is he fit and ready for the job? Or is he just going to jump into this and then flame out eventually in the next 3.5 years? You make your own decisions. Put a comment in the comment box. Tell me what you think. Let's have a discussion. Again, this is Media Talks TV with your host, Tony J. And I'm out. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Peace.